Good afternoon. Welcome to Book Passage. My name is Allison Bainbridge. Thank you for joining us in celebration of author Laurie Smith's new book, The Flow Habit Creating Peace, Passion, Purpose, and Everyday Miracles. We are streaming this event live, so we want to extend a welcome to our virtual audience as well, and it will be recorded. So if you want to watch it again later, it will be on our website. This is described as an easy to read guidebook to how flow, that feeling we all get when we're so into what we're doing that we lose track of time, can change our lives. The flow habit is filled with simple exercises and inspiring stories from people around the world who have experienced the life changing magic of flow. How many people here are familiar with this? Great, a lot of people in our audience. This is a practical book full of tips and exercises to help you uncover your unique formula for flow, rekindle your spark, and create a plan for following with where your soul is calling you to go. The flow habit is for anyone ready for a turning point. It is the key to feeling positive and to reconnecting with who we really are, our unique gifts, and finding fun ways to share them with the world. Laurie is an inspirational author of several books, a professional speaker, workshop facilitator, and coach. She's been working in the field of creativity and personal growth for 25 years. She's passionate about how flow can help us access our creative spark, live our best lives, and share our unique gifts with the world. Please give a warm welcome to Laurie Smith.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. There's so many people here who I'm just meeting for the first time, although I've known them for many years on Zoom. And there's also so many people here who I didn't expect and have been such an important part of my life. So thank you all for coming. And for those of you who I don't know, I'm excited to get to know you. So happy to be here at the Book Passage. I have attended many speakers and workshops here over the years, and I think we're all grateful for such a special bookstore and such a special place in our community. So before I dive in, I just want to let you know what today is going to be all about for the next hour. First, I'm going to give you a sense of the story behind the story, because although I've worked very, very hard on this book, it's definitely a passion project. It also kind of feels like it just sort of happened. A lot of synchronicities led to this. And also, I'll give you a sneak peek into the book. And then if you guys are willing, I want to lead you in a little exercise to give you a flavor of what the book's all about, because it's really all about uncovering your unique formula for flow. And so then we'll have a little time for that. And then I have three very special people who are going to join me up here on the stage, who are going to share their story of how they've worked with some of the material in the book and how it's changed their lives. And finally, we'll have a Q&A. And then after that, I'll be hanging out if people want to get a book signed or just chat and say hello. So some of you know this story, but 6 years ago, at the start of the pandemic, in those very early days of the lockdown, I was feeling very anxious, like most of the world, but also on a personal level, I was feeling really stuck. I don't know if you remember, but when we first got those emails that, my husband wasn't going into work the next day, I worked from home. The kids weren't going to school the next day, and the kids were coming with lots of questions, and had this feeling like I wasn't my best self. I just didn't have the resources to kind of be there for them in the way I wanted to, and get a little emotional just thinking back to that time. But because I didn't have to roll out of bed in the morning and race to school the next day, I thought, okay, this is an opportunity, and what can I do about this feeling that I'm having? And so I challenged myself to do something every day, just a few minutes a day, that got me into the state of flow and that I love to do. And, so often, I don't know about you, but on my to-do list, it's always things to make me better or to help me achieve or to get to a goal. But it's so rare that we just take a few minutes to do something that's just for the sake of it, just for the joy of it. And so for me, that was writing. I had, been a coach and I had been a speaker, but it had been many years since I had really done what I truly loved to do, what made me feel most like myself, which was I always loved to write. And so I challenged myself just to write a few minutes every day. And I didn't even tell my kids and I didn't even tell my husband I was doing it because I wasn't even sure I was going to be able to keep my own commitment to myself. But day after day, I did it, and sometimes I forgot I was doing my own secret little challenge, and it'd be right before I get to bed, and I'd be like, I'll be there in 5 minutes, and I'd just write whatever. And no, I didn't get in flow every time, but something started to happen, something started to shift. And I started to reclaim my identity as a writer and that spark and that person that I was. I often talk about sparkles, like follow the sparkles, follow what sparkles within you, within your heart, or that sparkly look people get in their eyes when they're like so passionate about something or so excited. Well, I started to feel the sparkle again. And so I told my family and I told some very special friends, including Laura, who you're going to hear from, people that were creative. And I was like, they won't judge me, they'll understand. And I was like, just do something that brings you joy, not necessarily writing, but something that lights your spark and has a high chance of getting you into flow. And friends started telling friends. And then I got courageous. And one of the most brave things was putting it out on Facebook, right? Because on Facebook, it's like everyone. And I thought, well, at least it's lockdown. I don't have to see them. So I was like, doing my little 28-day flow challenge. And it was amazing the people that came out of the woodwork. Like a friend from high school, he was like, oh my gosh, you're into flow. There's all this research. I read this book. And I started to, sort of read more about flow and learn more about flow. And I originally learned about flow when I had just graduated from college, and a Hungarian American psychologist had just come out with a book called Flow, the Optimal Experience, the Psychology of Optimal Experience. And I listened to it. It was back with the books on tape. I don't know if you remember, but I had a long commute to my job at Johnson and Johnson, and I put the audio tape in and I listened to it over and over and over again. And so that's how I had originally discovered flow, but I hadn't realized how much research had been done in the several decades since. And so through Facebook, I started learning more about flow, and more people started joining the challenges. And then I put it out on Instagram, and people started joining from India and from Africa and from, all these places all over the world. And one woman started, she was like, I've always, my husband and my son have always wanted me to learn to play chess. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend 5 to 10 minutes a day just learning to play chess. And by the end of the 28 days, she's like, I think I experienced a little flow while I was playing chess. And so it was such a joy. And I mean, that's why I say this book kind of it got written by accident, because I wasn't intending to write a book about flow. I was just intending to kind of get my life back. And now we're continuing to do these 28-day flow challenges, and there's so many people in my life that mean so much to me, and I can't imagine my life without them. And it's simply because of these flow challenges, people I've met from all over the world. And so, and it's just that, I mean, I could go on and on about the synchronicities, but as I was writing this book, what happened was the stories that people told me were just so incredible that I was like, there's something really important happening. There's something really important about this state of flow. And as I started reading about flow, there was so much out there about flow as it pertains to achievement. So much out there about performance, because the truth is, when we're in that flow state, we can do, we're so creative and we can achieve more, and we can, turn out more quantity of the work that we're doing at a higher quality. And all of that is true. But the reason that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi originally discovered flow was that he was asking the question, what makes life enjoyable? And why are some people more resilient than other people? And that's how he discovered flow. It's all about this intrinsic motivation and what brings us joy, and this sparkles. And so as I was studying, I uncovered, a couple years after all this began, a study had been done of people in lockdown in China. And what they found was those who had hobbies, high flow hobbies during those lockdown, had lower depression, lower anxiety. They didn't resort to alcohol and junk food to self-medicate. They were self-medicating through flow. And so I was like, this is an important part of the story. This piece that both flow connects us with our truest selves, that sparkle, and that's enough, just to connect with that part of ourselves. And when we do that, we're healthier, and it's things like this, like we write books and we, end up doing things that we didn't set out to do, but it's almost like we find our purpose again and we find that joy. And so, one of the synchronicities in writing this book is the first chapter starts with a near-death experience, and I'm not going to share it here. Hopefully, you'll read it in the book. But my husband and I had a near-death experience when we were on an airplane, and during that experience, I had this feeling of a deep, deep sense of peace, and it was a peak state that I experienced. And I put that in the first chapter of the book. And I felt like that was really, really important because it's such an important message for us all to know that it's innate and that we all have this peace within and we can access it even when the worst thing is happening around us. And it also is related to Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, how he set out on his journey when he was a young child during World War II. And he lived in Europe and there were bombs going off all around him. And he was just a little boy playing chess. He noticed that when he was playing chess, he didn't hear the bombs. And he wasn't aware of the danger that he was in. And he also noticed that he played a lot better chess and he knew intuitively where to move his chess piece, and he had a chance, he won more often. And it was like that sparkle, that question got put into his heart during that experience. And he didn't even know what psychology was at that time. He didn't even know he wanted to be a psychologist. But there are these moments that we have in our lives, often when we're little children, because children experience flow more often than not, where it's like we connect with that part of ourselves and we connect with that sparkle. And that's what it's all about. And the really cool thing is that it is innate. It's a biological, function of being human, this experience of flow. So that's sort of the backstory of how I got here and how I started on this journey. I love research. A long time ago, I worked, as I said, at Johnson & Johnson in the pharmaceutical industry. So one of the other ways I got into flow during the pandemic was I was just going through all these research studies, and I was connecting dots and just getting more and more excited about the power of flow. And so the book, I put a lot of energy in the description. They said easy to read. And just to give you a little sneak peek behind the curtain of the book, I purposely really wanted this information to be accessible to, and I don't know about you, but I read less and less these days, and I know we're all on our phones. So I wanted to make sure it had a lot of subheads and a lot of boxes. And so there's boxes in there that are flow facts and flow tips. And at the core of the message is that we're all already flow experts and we all already know how to do this. And some of the interviews that I did, some of the most compelling interviews were with kids. And none of them knew what the term flow state meant. They hadn't heard it before. But when I said what was in the introduction, Allison said in the introduction, it's that feeling we get when we lose track of time. And I would share that with them, and they would get that sparkle in their eyes, and they'd start to tell me, oh, yeah, I just had that the other day when I was playing ball with my brother, and we were playing keep away with the dog. And they started describing, like to a T, what the research says as far as how we get into flow. And I'd ask questions like, well, how, when you're falling out of flow, how do you get back? And they would know exactly, like they each would have different strategies for how they got back into flow, but they would know. And so the book is very much designed to be a roadmap so that we can each uncover our own unique formula for flow. And I think that to me, that's one of the things that I love about this. As I've been so obsessed with flow for like 6 years, and it's all I talk about, it's all I think about. And often, we whether I'm at a party or talking to my kids' parents, and I will start talking about flow. And what I love is it just gets to the heart of like all immediately it's an authentic conversation, right? Immediately it's about like what really matters, and when are you your best self, and what are your unique gifts. And so that's what I absolutely love about flow. So um, I thought I might read a little bit if you guys are up for that. So in the book, I one of the things as I was going through the research is researchers had a lot of they talked about the conditions of flow, and so what fell into the conditions being like the right the right conditions so that you have a high chance of getting into a flow state. They ran the gamut, everything from focus to losing track of time. And so I started wading through all of these conditions, and I thought, some of them are things we have control over, like focus, and other things are things that sort of seem to just happen, like losing track of time. And so I divided them into two groups, and I was like, it just doesn't seem like when you there's a lot of articles out there about how to get into flow, but they all have different. Some have 10 steps, some have steps, some have 5 steps. And I was like, there's got to be a formula for getting into flow. And so I had these little scraps of paper. I'm sure AI could have done this much better than I, but I didn't. There wasn't AI at the time, and I had these scraps of paper all over the kitchen counter, and I was like, I want to break this into like acronyms or something that would work to help us remember how to get into flow. And at one moment I looked and I was like, had this eureka moment, and it spelled feel positive. And I was like, oh, that's it. It's like that's the best benefit of flow is that it makes us feel positive, right? And so the word positive, I won't go through all of them, but each letter represents some of the benefits of flow. So I've already talked about like it helps us feel peaceful for the P. It's like positive emotions is the P. O is oneness. And it often when we're in a flow state, we feel this sense of merging, and that's what the O means. And that can be like a spiritual experience, but it also can be feeling as if we're like the words are just flowing out of our pen. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, or like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi said, he knew exactly where to move. It was like he and the chess pieces were one. And then S is sense of self. So after a flow experience, not during my favorite benefit of flow is that during a flow experience, we're not as self-conscious. The inner critic turns way down, the volume of the inner critic, so we're really not aware of ourselves. But afterwards, we feel a lot more confident and we're able to take risks. So, but the 4 steps of flow correspond to the FEEL acronym, and I'm not going to share them yet, but I'm going to read a story from the first chapter, the chapter that where I share these 4 steps, and see if you kind of relate to. I mean, so a lot of this, what I've discovered is that a lot of this is about courage, right? Like the courage to be authentic and the courage to be ourselves. And for me, just to put that out on Facebook took a lot of courage. And I think that we all have these moments. And for me, it's a work in progress. Like I constantly am finding myself not in flow, and it's not realistic to be in flow all the time. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so we all have these moments where we have to navigate our fears and what comes up for us. And this is a story about that. So this is in chapter 5, the 4 simple steps, FEEL, feel, don't think. I jumped off the boat, feeling the warm Caribbean water seep through the zipper of my wetsuit. The oxygen tank felt heavy on my back, weighing me down. Was I really doing this? Our instructor nodded, and my husband Jim nodded back. Then the two of them disappeared under the choppy water while I struggled to get my bearings. Waves splashed in my face. I couldn't see anything. I felt more like a kid who had just been abandoned by her closest friends on the playground than a grown woman who was choosing to do this on purpose. I flailed my arms and legs, doing my best to tread water and stay in one place. The ocean's surge pulled me back and forth, sending rolling waves so high that I couldn't see the boat anymore. Seagulls were diving all around me. It felt like they were mocking me. All I wanted to do was go home. This had been a mistake. Suddenly, the water broke, and the instructor, who seemed more like a Zen monk than a dive teacher, popped up beside me from the depths below. Everything okay? I don't think I can do this, I answered, my panic rising like the waves around me. My chest started tightening. You've got this, he said, looking calmly into my eyes. You know everything you need to know. Something about that look in his eyes, his trust in me, changed things. I took a big breath of the ocean air, what I knew would be my last for a while, then put the regulator in my mouth. Together we gradually descended under the choppy surface, down, down, down. I equalized my airways, as I had been taught, gradually letting my body get used to the increased pressure as we descended together until we finally reached the bottom of the sea, my knees landing softly on the powder white sand. In that moment, I looked up and saw sun pouring down through the clear aqua water, making the water's surface up there, where I had just been, look like heaven rather than a chaotic death trap. As I looked around me, seeing fresh fish everywhere, I felt a rush, a natural high, in part in awe of the beauty around me in this magical underworld, and in part, most likely, because I felt grateful to still be alive after my panic. Then the three of us, Jim, the instructor, and I, kneeled in a circle as Jim and I went through the motions of the test. The dive master was right. All the skills came back to me easily and effortlessly. After Jim and I passed the test, we floated together alongside a wall of coral filled with vibrant sea fans gently swaying with the currents, caves, nooks, and crannies. The underwater world was a kaleidoscope of color teeming with life, like a giant movie screen, except we were in it. Parrotfish, angelfish, squid, eels, urchins, and stingray floated every which way, seeming oblivious to our presence. A pair of turtles floated in front of us, keeping us company. We heard the magical sound of fish nosing through the bottom of the water, foraging for food. The grains of sand almost sounded like little prayer bells ringing in the distance. Heaven wasn't up there. It was always within reach, just beyond my fears. So that, I don't know if any of you have ever had that feeling I did on the top of the water where you're panicking and you're not sure that you can do whatever it is you're doing. But the 4 steps of flow are the first is the F, which is focus. And the question, I've come up with a question for each. Actually, there's 4 questions for each, but the main question for the F is, what's my top priority in this moment? And obviously in that moment, it was just to go down because I'm sure my husband was panicking down there, wondering why I wasn't coming down. And then the E, the first E, is engage. And this is the piece that gets so missed when we talk about flow relating to performance, because it's not about reaching an external goal. What really makes us get into flow, that switch within, is when we figure out a way to make what we're doing meaningful and fun for us. So the question for me was just reconnecting with why I was there and what was so important about diving for me in that moment. And that's intrinsic motivation. And that's that little sparkle within, like those unique gifts that we each have, that when we can engage with them, that's when the door opens for these peak experiences. And then the second E is equalize. And equalize is when I was equalizing my air, my inner air with the outer air. That's a key part of flow and I think this is why flow is kind of a way of life, because we are always stretching in flow. We have to stretch enough that we're engaged and we're excited and we're growing. Flow is all about growing. And when we're not stretching ourselves enough, we often feel what I felt was stagnant, bored, depressed. If we stretch ourselves too much, or we're hearing these inner voices that are telling us we should be working harder, that's when we feel anxiety or the panic, like I felt on the surface. And then the last, the L, is listen and let go. And those are kind of a simultaneous thing. It's like when we go through life with our wide open to what life is telling us, like the me just seeing the colors and enjoying the moment and being present, and we kind of follow where we're being led, and follow that call. That is like following the sparkles. That's what I mean by listen. But at the same time, we're letting go. We have to trust that like that dive master said to me, like, you got this. We have to trust in our own skills. We have to trust that we wouldn't be experiencing what we're experiencing if we hadn't been prepared for this very moment. And so it's just kind of letting go and trusting in a greater flow. So those are the 4 steps to flow. And now we have just enough time, if you guys are open to it, to do a little, like a guided visualization exercise that I like to do. And a key part of flow is emotional safety. And so for this, if you'll just kind of close your eyes, some people aren't into guided visualization, and if you're not, that's okay. But if you'll still just close your eyes, and I sometimes close my eyes when I lead these, so I'm not looking at you. So just like get in your safe space. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to a time in your past at some point. It could be yesterday, or it could be when you were a kid, when you were happier than ever before, and you were having a split second of flow, or even if it wasn't flow, just of that real sparkly happiness. So take a nice deep breath and just exhale and let it all go. And now imagine you're going up, 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 far above this present moment. And you might imagine that you're on a magic carpet, or you're on the back of a bird, or you're flying with an angel, or you become a bird, whatever works for you. And let that intuitive, all knowing within you take you back, 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 back to a time when you were happy, so happy, just a split second of happiness. It might not even make any sense what comes. And just look down, 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 down there and see yourself sparkling, feeling that joy. And you might take your magic carpet or whatever you're on and fly down and take a look at what you're doing just for that split second. Notice everything there is to notice. Is it dark? Is it bright? Are you with someone or by yourself? What are you doing? And you can get down as low as you want to take a look. And just notice everything. Letting go of needing to know exactly what it is or why it is. And just enjoy seeing yourself sparkling. And then whenever you're done and whenever you feel like you've received whatever it is that you most need to receive from this moment, fly up, 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 back, back, back above the present moment. You might see yourself down there in the book passage, and then fly back down, 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 and feel yourself sitting on the seat again. And you might want to rub your fingers and your toes together. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Rub your hands together. And welcome back. How was that? Does anybody have anything they want to share about the experience? And it's okay if you don't. Anybody have an experience that surprised them? Okay.
I don't know where it came from, but I saw myself, I think it was like in 6th grade or 7th, junior high maybe, on my bike, just riding down a windy road, like in my old neighborhood, and just my feet were like spread out, and you know, and you just like sit on the bike and you're like this, and I could feel that moment, and it was freedom. It
Mm.
was freedom, like 'cause that was the age where there wasn't like stress. It was like happy just on my bike.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, just in case people didn't hear, she was on her bike going down, down, down a hill, and she just felt freedom. I know that feeling. I love that feeling. Anybody else want to share?
I was going to say that I was taking a class at College of Marin painting,
Mm.
and I could just take myself back in the feeling of just being so engulfed in just the happiness of painting what I was seeing.
Mhm.
And it really was. Everything was just, as you say, the flow. It's just such pleasure and a feeling of, involvement just with something I love.
Mm.
And so I was just looking back on that particular time. It's really wonderful.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share anything? Well, what I love about this is that, we could do this meditation, every week and something else might come. And that's why with the 28-day flow challenge, people have done these month after month after month, and different activities call to us at different times, and we don't even really know why, but somehow when we follow that, it opens something up. So I know for myself, my favorite flow activities are doodling. I have this like very specific way of doodling. I used to doodle when I was like listening to a professor in college, and I discovered by choosing that as a flow activity that for me is like instant flow, for whatever reason. And so now before I write, I often doodle. And I call that floativating, where like it helps me get into the state of flow. And then another favorite one of mine is dancing in my kitchen and just like blasting the music and choosing a song. And I see Kaya's rolling her eyes because she, my family loves it when I do that. Um, so anyway, well, now I want to introduce three very special people who are going to share their experiences. So Laura Briggs, who I mentioned before, and Kathy Carver, and Nanu Madison. So if you'll all come up, and just to let you know, Kathy and Nanu, I'm just meeting for the very first time. But I've known them for years on Zoom because I've been leading these groups by Zoom. So it's very special. So you want to come up and sit?
We're going to have, there's two mics between these.
I think we can share.
Yeah.
I think we can do that.
Oh, you want me to? Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Briggs. I've known Laurie for a very long time. We were moms together since our kids were in first grade. So our kids went to elementary school together. And we were friends. And during COVID, we would go on walks to Blackie's pasture to get out of the house and talk about the craziness. And, you know, she would say to me, I've been getting up at 5 a.m. and writing and just writing, and all these pages are just coming out. And we would talk, and she would say, I'm doing this like experiment where, I just for 10 minutes, I focus on this one thing that I love to do. And then I said, oh yeah, I would kind of be into doing that. I've always been a creative person. I've taken ceramics classes and painting classes, and I was an art teacher for a long time. And so I was like, yeah, I'm on board. I'm gonna try this thing. And I would go into my kids' old playroom. During COVID, they were teenagers and they weren't using their playroom anymore. And I would go in and I would put on my headphones and I would just sit and get my watercolor paints out, and I would just, I'm not like a amazing painter or anything, but I would just put color on the page and I would just do circles, and 10 minutes would turn into a half an hour, which would turn into, an hour. And it was like the only place that I could just like be calm and not think about like the crazy world that we were in. And it was just like, wow, I'm kind of feeling centered. And my kids were teenagers, a lot of times on their phone. But Wilder, my son, would knock on the door and say, "What are you doing in there, Mom?" And I'd be like, "I'm doing art stuff, and you can come in, but you can't be on your phone. You can't be watching anything. You can do something creative with me." And he'd be like, "Yeah, I would do it." And so I did an activity with him where I would just get an index card, small little card like this, and I would pick a subject. And he was 14 at the time, so he was, he would kind of was a little skeptical. He was like, "Yeah, I do that." He's an amazing artist, actually. And I would say, "Okay, let's both draw a bicycle." And we would do it for like 3 minutes or 5 minutes. And I would draw mine, he would draw his, and then we'd show each other at the end. Okay, and so this would be my bicycle. And then he would show me his bicycle, which was amazing. He's like prolific. And so we would just do this, he'd come in the next day, we do a muffin. This was my muffin. Then he'd do one that was like, crazy details. And this boy of mine never had an art class. I never pushed it. And it's funny because now he's in college. He's in his freshman year of college, and he goes to school in Vermont. And they have a class that they take in January, just one class. And I'm like, "What are you going to do for your J term?" And he said, "I'm going to take an art and creative writing class." So he's obviously channeling his artistic talents, which is amazing to me. But I just the flow challenge experiment at that time for me was such a life raft, and it was such a good way to connect with him as a teenager. And then slowly that became something that I really look forward to doing. And I've done a lot of Laurie's, Zoom calls, and met a lot of people over Zoom talking about this journey. And I feel like by doing this flow experiment, it's really sort of brought home to me that like creativity is a superpower for me. And I've always loved doing creative things. But now if I tap into that part of myself by doing these little things each week or even each month, I don't do it all the time, but I really feel like it opens other parts of my life and sort of aligns me into a space where other things start to sort of happen. And it's hard to explain. But I just feel like this has been such a great exercise for me personally, and it's been an amazing community. And I'm just grateful for Laurie and my son's artwork, and my artwork is in her book, which is I feel so honored to be part of this book and this work that she's doing, because I really think it's important, especially now, just to harness that part of yourself that is, light and sparkly. And so that's sort of my experience. Sorry if I talk too long. Sorry.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm Kathy, and delighted to be up here sharing my experience with Laurie and Flo. And I'm not an artist, at least by trade, but I've been always creative in some form or another, and dabbled in photography a long, long time ago. But about 3 years ago, I was feeling I needed to put creativity more front and center in my life, because life it just felt out of balance. It was crazy, too many things to do. And I know that being in a creative space would provide me with more of a quiet time, but I couldn't prioritize it. I tried and tried, and you know how satisfying it is to check things off your checklist all the time? Grocery shopping, oh my God, I got to talk to my friend about this. I got to do this. There was always something else taking precedent. And I got more and more frustrated because I couldn't get there. And then a friend of mine introduced me to Laurie, and I signed up for her 28-day flow challenge. And the rest is history, because all kinds of synchronicities started to happen. And I'll share a couple things that were really valuable to me that I learned from Flo and from Laurie. And the first thing was that she would tell us, just do 5 minutes. And I thought, oh, okay, I can do that. That's easy, 5 minutes. And then as you hear, 5 minutes turns into 10 minutes, 10 into 15, 15 into 20, and then you're in flow. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. And I chose posting one photograph a day on social media for my 28-day challenge. And that was challenging because we always want to put the perfect photo up there. And I think it was a wonderful challenge for me because it allowed me to drop into a different space where I was seeing things differently, looking at things differently, experiencing things differently. And one of those photographs is actually in Laurie's book, which when you buy the book, you'll see. And it was kind of a new way of seeing for me. Um, and then just things started happening. That led into an opportunity to meet someone that I've always played with natural materials. And I signed up for a class at the College of Marin, a fiber arts class, which at that point was a commitment, but I wasn't working. And I produced a piece, my very first piece, that went into a gallery show and sold. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Well, it's flow is a wonderful state, but it's not, as Laurie said, always flowy. And I went back to work and then the second year signed up again for the fiber arts class, and it was challenging and really hard. And I keep going back to Laurie's mantra when I don't have the structure of a class, which is just take 5 minutes. And that has allowed me so much permission to just drop into a space that's more playful, that's more free thinking, that fills me with delight. And I'm happy to say that I signed up for the third fiber arts class and started this week. And I'm now at a point where I have a vision as an artist, and I think I know where I want to go with it. And I really have to say that it was through Laurie that launched this whole process. And I'm very grateful to her. So, yeah.
It's wonderful to hear your stories and to just see the power of flow in your lives. And I know in mine, it's just incredible. I heard in the introduction something about that flow happens at a transition or a turning point, which I hadn't known before. But the two stories I want to share are, in fact, turning points for me. And the first one was when the first time I worked with Laurie on anything, which was her creative flow workshop. I think it's something like that it's called. And I was in a moment, a turning point moment, because I'm a film producer and also I work with writers, coaching and editing. And I felt like producing was just taking a lot of energy from me, so I wanted to transition more into more coaching and write and editing with clients. And so I was doing this workshop with Laurie, and she does these amazing, as you saw, guided visualizations, which I feel just like shift my thought. And I suddenly got today, it's like, that's because I'm in flow when I'm listening. It's like, anyway, so I had this wonderful visualization and clarity that a lot of people were going to be coming to me, and I could just picture them coming to me. And within a week after that, I had doubled my client base. And now I have like a huge waiting list. Like it's just, I really credit that moment of flow in that moment of turning point and transition. And then the other story is coming back over the summer from producing a movie, because who learns? And it was exhausting. And I'd also been in a car accident while I was there in Philadelphia producing the movie. And I came back and I wasn't writing, and I'm a writer, and I just could not connect to my creativity. It was scary. I was kind of at sea, because that was how I ground myself. And I was physically having trouble, and it was just really hard. And then Laurie did, thank goodness, a 5-day flow challenge, which I just love. 5 days I can do. And I started, since I felt so blocked around writing, I thought, okay, I'm going to start by doing a collage. And it was really fun. The first day was really fun. But I wasn't really connecting to what I needed, which was I needed to write again. So, kind of going to how do you create a flow setup for yourself? I thought, okay, I'm going to write, but I'm just going to write for 5 to 10 minutes because that's what we like, the 5 to 10 minute thing. And then keep out judgment and self criticism and just find that kind of sparkly soul connection of fun. And I started doing that. It was so wonderful to live on the page with my characters and to reconnect to writing and joy for me. It was amazing. And I guess that was like October, and I've been writing every day since. And I have like almost half a novel by now. And it's just been fun, and it's just been flow, and it's just been short little bursts. And it's really fabulous. And I also, another realization just now is that I think that activity and working in flow also helped me recover from the car accident, because I'm just suddenly realizing, like, oh, after having done that for a little while, really feel so much better. So I love that. I got to get a sneak preview of Laurie's book after it was written, and just seeing the way the exercises guide you through to finding flow is beautiful, and the examples and the stories. I feel like all I need to do to get into flow is just start reading that book. It's really wonderful. I'm so happy that now I can share it with so many of my friends and my clients, and it's great. Yeah.
Thank you. So, I mean, as you can see, like, how can I not keep doing the 28-day flow challenges? Because it's like you hear stories like that, and I learned so much, and I was so inspired. And so there's this kind of give and take when we do this as a community, which is why I included so many stories in the book, because I really wanted to create like that sense that you're in this with your buddies. Like I call them flow friends, because every time someone shares something like that, I don't think I've ever heard of the same activity. I mean, maybe there's more people dancing with me in their kitchens, but there's some people I do, because I was writing every day. I did these emails to everyone, and I chose a word of the day and a question of the day. And some people were like dancing to a song with the word of the day in it, or everybody puts their own spin on it. So anyway, so I just feel super grateful to all of you. Thank you for sharing. So we have 10 minutes. I don't know, do you want to do a Q&A now, or?
So I'm going to pass a mic around so everybody could hear. So if you could raise your hand if you have a question or a comment or experience you want to share.
This is so fun. What was the second E on feel?
The second E is equalize.
Yeah. So, oh, I can hear you.
The second E is equalize.
Yeah. So I just had this moment where you realize that no, that was the first.
You mean
E.
the first one's engage.
Engage.
That's the intrinsic motivation.
So the moment for me was I've sort of been going back and rewriting this period of time of my life recently about similar flow and starting over. And what you realize is the engagement part is the key, because it takes away the fear, right? Because so often we don't want to show up, or we don't want to do something because we have all this anxiety about, like, oh, I don't want to go to that conference because I don't know anyone, and how am I going to introduce myself, and what am I going to do? But then you just go, and then the fear just leaves, right? And so, or like, worst fear ever is getting up in front of getting up in front talking to people, and you realize once you do that, your fear subsides very quickly. So I think that's a really big part to make that connection. So anyway, that was my takeaway from that.
Glad that resonated. Thank you very much.
I'm noticing there's a lot of women here, and I'm curious if you've found that because of our conditioning, women are more ready for this kind of message. And I'm curious how we get more, what you
Well,
found with men and how we can engage them in this.
there have been many husbands who've come along for the ride, not pointing any fingers. And so I think the community became primarily female because it was friends, invited friends, and it was, a safe space. But it is for both genders. It is for anyone, and it's a human thing. And I will say that I can't say because I didn't study it, but the feedback I got from people originally was, there's a lot out there about how we need to focus and we need to turn off the notifications on our phone and not use our phone so much and blah, 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 blah. But what I was hearing from the women was that's nothing compared to the voice inside me and my inner critic. And that's the real block to flow. And which is why there's a whole chapter. This chapter 2 is all about that. And so I don't know. I mean, I think we all have, men and women have our own versions of that because it's a lot of the exterior internalized, right? And and it might take different forms depending on who we are. But I think that is always something that we all have to navigate. And just like I learned so much from the kids, and they provide, a different perspective. I just I love hearing how people are experimenting with it and what they're learning. And I mean, I've been doing this nonstop for 6 years, and every time I hear something, I'm like, oh, I got to put that in the book, but the book's done. I'm like, so that's the fun of it, right? Like, that's why we have to keep talking and keep sharing. And I mean, that's why I'm so passionate about this. It's like, so yeah, I mean, I think it's for all of us, but that there probably are some themes, women and men, and how we're socialized for sure, too. So.
I love hearing about the children. And at what point does it change? Do you think is it like middle school? Is it, when did you see, what age did you see that the flow sort of started to ebb?
There definitely was a difference. However, some of the wisest people that I interviewed were young teenagers. Like there's Joseph is 18 and he's a swimmer. And he taught me I mean, every interview, but particularly the kids sent me down rabbit holes.
Wow.
Like there was one kid that was like, I never get into flow in school except when there's free choice, and I like to play my drums really loud. So the only times I get into flow when I'm playing drum is when I'm at my instructor's because it's padded and he blasts the music. And so then I was like, autonomy. Like that's the whole thing. Like it kind of, a lot of this I stumbled in accidentally, like just saying like, choose your own flow habit. And then, I mean, there is a huge body of research out there on how important autonomy is when it comes to flow, and also how micromanaging and hovering is the worst thing for flow. And so that makes me passionate because it's like, oh my gosh, I would love to have this be sort of what every manager thinks of when they're managing their employees and when they're making decisions about work from home or not. Just be like, how can I get the most out of my people? Well, if they get into flow. So how can I design meetings so that they get into flow? And teachers, like how can I, and a lot of it comes down to like the individual. So there's a huge connection between emotional intelligence and flow. And vice versa. All of this is always cyclical. So the more flow we get into, the more we understand ourselves, and then the more flow we get into. So, yeah. So I mean, I'm just so passionate about it. But a lot of it I learned from kids. And what I found was that the younger kids just knew. Just knew it was their way of life. So they were in and out, in and out, in and out of flow. And they knew their formulas and they could talk about it, and they just got so animated. Then the teenagers were struggling with it. Like, I interviewed some that had ADHD or, were struggling with Joseph, I was mentioning, struggled really with serious anxiety. But he sent me on this down the rabbit hole of how he would get into self-talk. He's a great swimmer, and swims competitively. But during the pandemic, he dropped out of swimming, and he said, I'll time swim in the pool, and I just can't get out of my own brain. And I'm ruminating, and I'm thinking, oh, I would be faster if I hadn't dropped out during the pandemic. And he said what some of you have said. His father would just say, just keep swimming before he drop him off for practice. And he'd say, but if I just keep doing it, and he'd do positive self-talk. And that's when I realized with that, and that it was thanks to Joseph that I kind of came up with the idea of Floativate, because I'm like, a little drop. Like the whole theme is a little, 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 little. Like that's why with the meditation, it's like go to the split second when you're feeling the peak. And this is how habits form. This is all neurobiology. So it's like little 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Even if you don't get into flow, you're doing that pathway. And the same thing with Joseph. It's like just a little drop of the benefit that you get from flow. If you give yourself a little drop of the emotion, the positive, feeling positive, however you can do it, self-talk, jumping up and down, listening to music, whatever little drop, like that will lead to floativating, which will lead to more flow. So it's just this it's just the same theme. It's like baby steps.
Hello. What's next for you, and what would you like from this book?
Well, I'm kind of in the state where it's super exciting. It's funny because all along I was sort of following the sparkles and following flow. And then I got this book deal, which was super exciting, but it was a very concrete goal with deadlines, and it was very stressful, and it was hard to stay in flow during the year of editing and birthing this book. So I'm kind of looking forward to being back in that state of just following the sparkles and promoting the book and seeing what it leads to next. I think my dream for the book is that not only does it more of this happen, and people start to sparkle, and it helps us cope, right, with what's going on out there or in our own private lives, but also I'm hoping that the more and more people that start to learn about flow, that it'll make that shift that I was saying, like with teacher, it'll just sort of become in the air where we're looking at flow, not so much productivity, but all things that flow can offer, and just sort of even how we parent or how we do our meals at night, like, how we arrange our homework, how we arrange our schedules. Like I'm super excited about that. That's what I'm brainstorming in my own life and experimenting with. I'm like, how can I flow is a way of life. It's like there's a perfect formula here for not just experiencing the flow state, but also if we follow these things, like what's most important in this moment, if we keep asking ourselves that over and over, and how can I make this meaningful and fun? And am I putting too much pressure on myself or others, or am I not stretching myself enough? And am I letting go and listening? Like that could be a way of life, So that's what's super exciting to me.
And also maybe you're doing more flow challenges and flow circles.
Yeah, so I swore when I started these that I would always offer the 28-day flow challenge for free, because I love it. And every time somebody from the other side of the world shows up, I love it. I'm just like over the moon, like somebody from Uganda was on my Zoom call. I'm so excited, so excited. So I will never, I don't offer the Zoom calls as much as I did during the pandemic, but I do have the 28 emails are available on my website. You can sign up and you get them one day after another. I periodically offer free Zoom calls for the people doing them. And now I do offer, which Nanu has been participating in, her husband Teal, flow circles, where it's for people that really want to take their journey with flow deeper. And they're like Nanu described with her writing, and people that are experimenting with a flow habit, but also kind of playing with me as far as like how can we get our overall lives to flow. So that's what my flow circles are about, and they're weekly Zoom calls.
I was wondering, I was going to ask for people today who are going to purchase the book and read it and get excited about it. Is there like a group Zoom meeting regularly, or is there, a blog or something that they can follow?
Well, everything's on my website, which is lauriesmith.com. Mm-hmm. But an idea I had is that I'm thinking about doing a book club for
I was
free.
right. I was thinking
Yeah.
of something like that.
Yeah, like where we read one chapter a month.
Yeah.
And even if you've read the whole book, like just focus on one chapter a month. And so I'm thinking about starting it probably in February where it's like, okay, let's all do chapter 1
Yeah.
and let's talk about what that's about in a Zoom call. So and I in the past I've done those like at 8 a.m. on Sunday, which is very early, but what I love about that time slot is then um we capture people in the other parts of the world because maybe we
go.
can get Europe and Africa to join us on those Zoom calls. So, but anyway, that's TBD. So just if you sign up for my website, I mean my email list, or visit my website, there'll be information.
Well, thank you so much. Before we say goodbye, we're going to do a
Oh yes.
yeah. Here we go. We're going to do the raffle. Sorry to our Zoom people watching. You couldn't participate, but you can purchase the book here. Okay.
Oh gosh, Kaya Bobless, my daughter.
Ah! Okay, maybe
we'll
pick
do another
another
one.
one.
She already has this. Lucky girl.
Funny.
Oops.
It's funny you filled it out.
Michelle Regan.
Okay, come on down. So I want to thank